In San Francisco, the community-based veterans organization Swords to Plowshares took a decidedly non-traditional approach to this Veterans Day. It looked to the future instead of memorializing the past, sponsoring an open forum for all veterans to share their thoughts, hopes, and frustrations. Betty Ann Bruno reports.
From a corner building in San Francisco's Mission District, for years, counselors at Swords to Plowshares have dispensed advice to veterans, helping them settle into civilian life. Today, the counselors listened. The veterans talked about all the things they need. Housing topped the list. 1/3 of all homeless people in the United States are veterans, mostly from the Vietnam War.
50% of my problem is just not having a roof over my head. If I can get a place to stay, then I can work on the psychological problems that I do have. And I know there are many, and I know I haven't even started to touch on most of them.
The veterans talked about post-traumatic stress syndrome, what it does to their lives, the tantrums, the confusion, the impatience. As veterans talked, staff people made lists, issues of discrimination, jobs, bureaucracy, politics, public misunderstanding, all the things that distinguish reality from a perfect world.
Now, I'm a combat veteran and I'm black, and I'm talking about that only. Okay. Now, that's all I gotta say.
It didn't matter if you were white, black, green, or blue.
Right.
As long as you was watching my back, I was watching yours.
There's a lot of sadness among veterans because we see a lot of our fellow veterans dying in the streets.
But behind the complaints, a sense that perhaps the time has finally come when things can be set straight.
And really push the Clinton administration to really have an airing of all the issues, admit the truth about Vietnam, admit that it was a giant mistake.
These vets would like the public to understand, first, the fierceness of the Vietnam War, and second, how difficult it has been for them to return to, quote, a normal life.
Camaraderie that got us through the war, that was stripped away from us when we were brought back, because unlike World War II in Korea, whole units were brought back, but in Vietnam we were brought back individually. So we were in the front lines one day, and 48 hours later we were in the lines at McDonald's, and it was just too much. A lot of us couldn't make the transition.
There's good news about that. Swords to Plowshares recently learned it will receive a $1 million federal grant next year to buy, remodel, and operate a transition housing project, one that will accommodate 16 veterans at a time. Swords to Plowshares director Michael Blecker says he thinks the open forum worked pretty well because after all the venting and complaining, the vets talked about starting a business or a whole line of businesses, reasoning if Delancey Street can do it, Vietnam veterans can too.
I think it's a natural growth of an organization like Swords, which tends to place people in jobs but not to create jobs themselves. So if we could actually create a business that would put some people to work, I think that's very exciting.
One veteran said he realizes the public has heard about all these issues over and over again for 20 years. But he said the fact is Vietnam veterans will continue to talk about these issues until the last Vietnam veteran is dead. In San Francisco, Betty Ann Bruno for the 10 o'clock news.